Real Estate Rewired.
Hello and welcome to Real Estate Rewired with Gus Waite, AI with a Heart. This is the YouTube channel where I'm talking to 100 professionals in the real estate space to see what's working, what's not working, what's going on with AI, what's changed, what hasn't changed, and how are they utilizing to use AI to have what you love and turn it into a superpower and take what you hate off your plate. And today, we got Dan Marrello. We go back 20 years, Dan. You are the managing broker for Compass in New York City. Would that make you the biggest hedgehog in the Compass sort of ecosystem?
Unfortunately not. There's still plenty of people above me, including our founder, Robert Refkin, which I'm sure everybody has heard.
Yeah, well, no, but this is what I mean. Yeah, maybe the founders are above you, but in terms of, I
Mhm.
mean, how many agents are in, how many agents are you responsible for?
So I'm the broker of record, which means all of the New York City licenses fall under me. And we probably have just shy of 3,000 at this point in New York City.
Got it. So let's go back to the beginning, Dan, because I don't know many people that when they were 9 years old said, I want to be a real estate agent.
Including
So,
myself.
yeah, right, me neither. So, how did you get into this crazy business? Like, what was your sort of origin story?
Yeah, so went to University of Rhode Island, financed and majored in finance, hopes and dreams of being a stockbroker. Um, Graduated just after 9/11. So my hopes and dreams of being a stockbroker, quickly burned right after that. I went on, I think, 20 different interviews and they would offer you, I think, $250 a week and you would have to make 500 phone calls a day. And I'm like, I can't even eat for $250 a week. A friend of mine talked me into who was working at City Habitats at the time. Said, "Why don't you come work for City Habitats? You can make X amount of dollars, et cetera." So I did, got my license, and I rented something like 46 apartments in my first 6 months. And I said, this is amazing. And I said, if I can make money in this market where at that point, this is right after 9/11, people actually feared living in New York City. I said, if I can make money when people fear living here, like when the market turns, or at least, it becomes safe again, or the mentality becomes safe, the sky's the limit. Um, that's sort of my story. And then within the first 12 months, Andrew Heiberger, who owned City Habitats at the time, ended up offering me an office. So I was 23 years old, and he said, I want you to run this office. I had no idea what I was doing. He says it's very simple. You just got to teach people how to make money, teach them how to rent apartments, how to get clients, et cetera. And the rest is history. So I've been managing agents for what is that, close to 24, 25 years at this point.
So,
And
here's
that's
what's
my segue into real estate.
got it. And what did you love about it then? And because listen, you don't do this for this long unless you love something about it, right? So, what
Mhm.
parts of the business do you love?
I love deal making. I also love training agents and getting them to make money, really, is, getting them from, and at this point, I'm not focused on newer agents. I did that for probably my first 15 years. And now getting an agent who, let's say, grosses 300 grand to gross 800 to a million, or taking you from a million to 3 million. That's what I really enjoy.
Now, here's what I find interesting, right? So, if you look at there's what's changed over the last 25 years in your real estate career, and then there's what hasn't changed over the last 25 years. And something you said when we talked recently really reiterated this for me. So, at the time, what systems did city habitats have in place or technology did they have in place that other brokerages didn't that allowed them at that time to really be the big dog in the rental market?
I'm going to say no, no technologies. Why we were the big dog in the market as rentals is we had access, and that was really it. We had access to basically every rental listing that existed. And the technology really was we had a key system. We
Hmm.
had boxes and we had key boxes full of apartment keys and building keys. And if you remember back in the day, access was the hardest part, right?
Hmm.
So if you had access, then you were good. The technologies at the time when I first started were literally Craigslist and New York Times.
Hmm.
This was
And
even
you,
before, I mean, websites really didn't even start going until I'd say 2005, probably.
right. So you had Craigslist and New York Times print,
Print, yeah,
right, where the Sunday thing would come out and it'd be a loft in Flatiron and it was 295 Park Avenue. And then you would get the phone calls.
yeah.
But let me ask you this, even at that time, Dan, right? Were there the people who showed up early at the office? You as the manager going, wow, look at Gus is here 5 minutes before me. I've got six voicemails looking for an apartment. Let me get him those leads before anybody else gets them.
Absolutely. Yeah. You had your handful of people that were the soldiers, the people that showed up early, worked late, and hustled.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm almost wanting to tie this to 25 years later, the speed to lead with AI and how it's doing that differently, right? So the speed to lead 25 years ago was, as an agent, I just needed to show up at the office and Dan knew that I was working hard and that I could close deals. And he liked me because I was showing up and I didn't create problems.
Mm.
That's how I got my leads. So now walk me through sort of the evolution of went from print to online, right? Craigslist, New
Well,
York
I'll even
Times.
stop you there. I'd say the lead used to come to the company, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, the lead would come to the company and then it would go to the agent, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
the company, let's just say, would be running New York Times ads, and those ads were to attract leads, and then the leads to be handed out to the agents. Um, then the evolution of the internet and all that other stuff is now the lead, if the agent does it right, comes to them,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and that's where agents struggle. Lead generation is 99% of this business.
Mm-hmm.
So now there's a million different ways of lead generating. And it's a very crowded space.
And this is what I find interesting about it. So listen, every business, right? It drives me nuts when you go into a restaurant and it says, wait for the hostess to seat you, and there's no hostess. I'm always so conscious of how many businesses place obstacles in the way of you doing business with them, right? The obstacle used to be for the consumer, and we're talking about the rental space now. The obstacle used to be for the consumer, I don't know where this building is. Or if I do know where the building is, I don't know how to get in. And if I do get in, I don't know who to contact to put in an application. And if I do put in an application, I don't know if they're going to take a guarantor from Kentucky. So there were all of these obstacles that the agents would overcome on behalf of that particular consumer. Now we move from, instead of calling the office and handing it to it and the agent calls back, now there's been a 12-hour loop. Now the loop becomes, hey, it's on the internet, and they reach directly out to the agent, right? Then Zillow comes along and says, hey, guess what? We're going to actually give all the information for the address, the information for the landlord, the application link, and all of that kind of stuff. So now the agent is in a completely different realm than he was when he started going to the office early and getting the New York Times ad.
Mhm.
Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah, totally. So
Right.
we went from the um I guess the gatekeepers of information, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you had to go to the broker to find what was available, how to apply, et cetera, to advisors in the process. We're not the gatekeepers of information anymore. We're now, I guess, the insurance policy or the advisor on how to get you from A to Z as quickly as possible.
And the other thing that I'm seeing is the speed to lead, right? So 20 years ago, it might be 12 hours Somebody's looking through the Sunday Times. They were really ambitious and they went and got it Saturday night, and they're
Mhm.
calling you Saturday night because they need an apartment. You're coming in 12 hours later. You're giving it to the agent. The agent's following up to them. Now, the process is, what do you think is the average speed to lead in your current setup?
Well, if you look at like I think Zillow studies and we even study it on our own leads, is someone has to respond to the client and to the lead within 4 minutes.
Mhm.
Otherwise, the success of that falls off a cliff.
And what statistics, you remember, Dan, like what percentage of you know what I mean? Like what's the percentage of people, if you don't contact them in 4 minutes, you'll never hear from them again?
I think it goes from something like 40% down to less than 5%.
Got it. So if you're not responding within 4 minutes,
Correct.
and is it reasonable for a human being who's an agent running around showing apartments, picking up his kids at school, putting up ads, making listing presentations to respond in 4 minutes
Is it reasonable?
without AI assistance, I guess I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's unreasonable to think just like when you name it, like there's life, right? I'm on the
Right.
subway, I have to pick up my kids. Like there's so many other obstacles that may prevent me from answering within 4 minutes. And that's where, part of our pre-conversation is like this is where teams are thriving because they're not allowing the good teams are making sure that those crumbs don't fall off the table, right? Is they have somebody answering the lead immediately, or they've got an auto response, or they have AI, or whatever the case is, they're addressing the lead in a timely manner.
So there's the front of the funnel, right? So you can spend as much money as you want on ads and postings and all of the stuff that people do. But what I hear you saying is if you are not responding within 4 minutes, the chances of you turning that person into a client fall off the cliff.
Yeah, and just think, and this is for cold leads, Gus. This isn't,
Right.
hey, Gus gave me your name.
Right.
I heard you helped my uncle.
Exactly.
Just think of the consumer, right? What is the consumer doing, right? They're searching, right? And they're inquiring. So they may be inquiring on 6 to 24 different properties.
Hmm.
So it's a matter of who's going to respond and respond meaningfully the quickest, right? Who's going to grab that lead, create a relationship, and hopefully get them feeling confident to work with you, right?
Abs- Absolutely. And what I hear you saying, Dan, and I mean, that was the interesting thing. I remember when Compass first came onto the space and all us real estate folks were, ha ha ha, these tech guys think they can figure out real estate in New York. And yet they've consistently looked at the pain points or the obstacles for people doing business with you and have
Mm,
addressed those with technology. Would that be? I mean, listen, I ran a report, the top 1% of brokers. What are the top 1% of brokers in the country doing that the bottom 99% don't do? And Compass consistently comes up at the top of that list with number one, speed to lead.
mhm.
Number two, the other part that I would get into is there was a statistic that 7% of the current CRM in your current CRM is going to move within the next 12 months. You just don't know what 12% or what 7%. So what has Compass done in terms of its, re-engagement campaign, drip marketing campaign, staying in touch with people in a meaningful way? How has that changed in the last couple of years?
Um, yeah, so everything we've built has been to save the agent or give the agent time back, right? So they've got time to do the important things. Well, number one, time to spend with your family, but also time to focus on sales, on speaking to people instead of being bogged down doing sort of the minutia. To address your question with what have we built to, I guess, stay in front of people, we have a CRM that's built right in the platform, right? So you could set up, you can customize your CRM, you can get it basically working for you, right? Now, I train agents on tags, like tags are your most important, right? So clients are, if picture all the clients are sitting in the middle of Madison Square Garden, right? And there's people vying for their attention all the time, right? So how do you stay in touch with them to keep their attention and do it in a meaningful way, right?
Hmm.
Because they're getting emails, they're seeing Instagram, they're getting phone calls and text messages, and like, how do you get the client to get rid of that noise and focus on you? And your content has to be meaningful and it
Hmm.
has to be personalized. So I teach agents, you got to use tags. Like I use Amazon as an example. Like the minute you get on Amazon, the biggest platform in the world, right? They're tagging you, right?
Hmm.
With different things. Like you're now, I could see based on your reaction, you're looking for rakes or whatever the case is. Like imagine you tagged all of your clients based on price point, based on location, based on their likes, their interests, etc., and then tailored your communication around those tags, right? So go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and actually, this is interesting because I did a little research. I know that I don't know how long ago when you mentioned your CRM, you guys had purchased contactually,
Correct.
and they didn't give the exact figure, but I think it was 8 figures. So whatever
Hmm.
that is, it was a lot of money. And the reasoning was, and it was really smart, is because the recognition that A, you have to own your data. B, you have to have a system that you can customize to work the way that you want to work because, as we know what happened with Follow Up Boss, part of the challenge of buying a real estate solution that's owned by private equity is Zillow's going to come along and purchase it, and all of a sudden your clients aren't your clients, they're our clients. So I think it was very fortuitous that your owners looked at this and said, hey, we have to own this. We have to be able to customize this. And are you currently using any AI tools to personalize the follow up? In other words, there are some AI tools out there I know that can read the history of emails, can sort of look at all of the communications I've ever had with Dan. And so that the follow up, I still have to approve it, but the follow up says, hey, Gus, this is what I would recommend. Dan's a big Giants fan. The Giants suck this year. Like, let's start off with a joke about that. Is that part of what the follow up is?
Yeah, so I'll give you two sort of pieces or two things we have in the platform. One of the two is we have likely to sell, right? So likely to
Mm-hmm.
sell is an AI driven algorithm based on the contacts in your CRM. And you said before what 7% of your
Correct.
contacts, your CRM influence move. How do you tell who those 7% are? So based on this algorithm, it lays it up on a platter for you. You click your likely to sell and it says high, medium, or low. And it's constantly changing based on market conditions, your client when they purchased, et cetera, to say this person's highly likely to sell. They have a high likelihood of selling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our conversion rate on that across the country is somewhere between 8 and 10%. So 8 and 10%, which is actually high, believe it or not. Between 8 and 10% of the likely to sells actually end up selling, right? So as an agent, if you're not just checking that every day, oh my God, these people, high likelihood of selling, reach out to them. We have predefined scripts. They can literally click a button that sends a reach out to them.
And it's interesting. So the New York market, like I've interviewed a lot of these predictive analytics firms that will basically go into your current CRM. And like you said, they're using AI. Whose kid went to college? Who just paid off their mortgage? Who died? Who's getting a divorce? Lots and lots of other. It's more difficult in New York City because of co ops and condos, and that kind of information isn't as readily available. But have you guys sort of cracked the nut in New York City on what factors to look into in terms of who would be more likely to sell?
I think we have. You still have. You still have a filing for co-ops, so you can still see when something has traded, right? You see a
Hmm.
UCC3 or UCC1, right? You still see a deed filed in ACRES for condos. So, obviously the tricky part gets to the LLCs, right? But
Hmm.
our CRM isn't necessarily totally linking a name to an address, right? So if I have Gus Waite in here owns One Main Street, but Gus Waite bought it under GW LLC, I'm still going to come up because I have One Main Street in my CRM with you,
Hmm. Got it.
right? So it doesn't necessarily need to be a perfect match every single time um, for it to work.
So this is super cool. I mean, Dan, can you imagine? I get. Do you ever get frustrated? You're like, oh my god, if I had this stuff when I was starting out, I would be crushing it because it's kind of like we had to carry the logs over the river on our back, and
Yeah.
now there's a
Well,
boat,
I would say, there's two sides of that coin, right? So you could
right?
say that maybe back when we did, it was easier because there was less stuff, right?
Right. Yeah, you're
You
absolutely right.
you didn't have to do social media. You didn't have to do drip campaigns. You didn't have to do all that. The problem is now everybody's got different tools, right? To get in touch with people. So the space is so much more crowded. So you actually have to be even more creative than you were in 2001 in order to stay in touch with people. You have to be more consistent, you have to be more creative, and you got to have more stuff. You got to have more content.
Yeah, it's
Before, we
interesting.
didn't have to do any of that. We
Yeah,
sent
listen, you showed up early on Sunday morning and you got a couple
exactly.
of phone numbers. You called them up and you took them to 95
Yeah.
Christopher and you did a deal. Yeah.
So in essence, it's actually harder now. You have more tools, but it's a little bit harder.
Yeah, I get it. So and then listen, we'll talk about this separately. It's also the adaptation of the tools. And I mean, especially with the space at which AI is changing, it's like drinking out of a fire hose.
Yeah.
And every day there's a shiny new whistle that I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do this. And it can be a bit of tech overload, right? And so sort of redefining, and this is what I love to do, is really redefining what do you love about what you're doing? And if the processes can't get me in more situations that I love,
Mhm.
it's really not worth it because I see AI sometimes just magnifying dysfunction. Meaning,
Mhm.
if I'm completely disorganized and overwhelmed and angry and pissed off because I don't like people, and AI just puts more people into a space where I'm dealing with people that I don't like, what's the point? Does it
Right.
make sense?
Yeah. You should get out of the
Yeah,
business if you're in that head, but
exactly, 100%. So now walk me through. You got a new agent that's maybe coming over that's got a book of business, $1 million or whatever, and he's at some other firm. Walk me through the process if they're utilizing the tools that are available to them. Walk me through the current sort of tech deck, current tools. If someone was coming over, like what are you guys doing for them at this point?
yeah. So I think back in the day, we used to say you need as many contacts as possible, right? I
Mm-hmm.
want 10,000 people so I can email them. Where our mindset has shifted a lot, really, and saying, and I think it's much easier to swallow. So I would tell somebody new coming over, come with your top 200 people. And if it's not 200, your top 50, right? But no more than 200. And I want those people into your CRM. I want their full addresses. And if they own multiple homes, let's go get their other addresses, right? So you can refer into other markets, right? And I want number one, you're gonna set an action plan in the platform that's gonna give you reminders for phone calls every 90 days. I mean, this is just like old school stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the platform's gonna serve it up. So when I log into the platform, it shows my tasks for the day. Call Gus Waite, call John Doe. It's Betsy's birthday. Like it's just gonna tee it up for me so it's nice and easy. I also would set them on another action plan, which is more of a drip campaign, right? Emails that go out let's call it every 2 weeks or every 30 days or however the cadence you want, right? And then I'm going to be making sure that I'm checking my likely to sells every single day, right? And that's going to also show up on my tasks. All these different things are going to be ideally, once you get the machine rolling, you're going to be just generating leads, and then you're adding somebody else into the network. You're adding somebody else, and ideally you're tagging them, right? Everyone has certain tags. And then you're reaching out to the people with meaningful content. I'm going to give you one example of a tag, right? We have an agent who sells townhouses in Brooklyn. That's what she does, right? So she tags people in her CRM. One of her tags is faucets, right? And you're like, faucets? The hell's that? These are everybody who has a backyard faucet, right? So she sends them a personalized message. Hey, was thinking about you, and this goes out in October. Make sure you shut the water off to your backyard faucet so it doesn't freeze over the winter, right? And I know this is so dumb, but it's so personal, right? And specific to them. She said, every time I send this, they're like, oh my God, thank you so much. You just saved me thousands of dollars. Or how's everything? It's funny you texted me. We're thinking about selling, blah, blah, blah. Um, Other people do it, they tag finance, like if other people in finance industry, and then they're communicating just specifically on finance things or sports or pets or whatever the case is, or
Mm-hmm.
private schools, right? You may be in the private school sphere. Two of your kids go to two different private schools. Maybe there's news about private school, and I'm communicating specifically about that.
Got it. And then, of course, on the back end, there is that speed to lead you talked about. Either there is a team that's responding, or they've set it up in AI, or Compass has a system in order to do that. You you have your own CRM that you're never going to lose your data. That
Hmm.
you're then consistently following up with people with relevant data based on what information they get. You're doing the drip marketing.
Hmm.
Now, what about the other? You talk about the predictive analytics. What percentage of my company or of my database is likely to sell?
Hmm.
Um, in terms of marketing, social media, uh, the listings presentation, the photos, with now there's so much AI generated content.
Yeah.
How do you guys sort of facilitate promoting the agent as the Brooklyn townhouse person, or how does that work?
I mean, there's so many points throughout your process on the platform. At basically every point where you've got the AI assistant next to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
We just launched something literally called AI assistant. I can go in, click the button, it's voice activated, and say, hey, I just met Gus Waite in an elevator. He's looking for a two-bedroom, two-bath in Tribeca. His budget's up to $5,000. His email address is gus.waite@gmail.com. His phone number is X, Y, and Z. Please create a contact card, create a collection, send him a search, invite him to the search. Um, and then so on and so on. Put them on a drip campaign for a new buyer, et cetera, and the platform does it for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the listing end of it, I could do the same thing. I just got a listing at One Main Street, apartment number 2B. Create a listing. Don't publish it yet, but write a description based on the history of the building and the apartment, or et cetera, right? And it's going to do it all for me. Also, create a social media post or give me a list of 8 posts that I could do over the next 3 weeks to promote this listing. Or I could even do the same thing and say, give me a marketing plan or some tags or some posts I could use to promote myself in the neighborhood or whatever you wanted to do. But it's all literally right in the platform and it all talks to each other. So we have something called Marketing Center, right? Marketing Center is what everybody does with marketing, right? You can do video, you can do customized email blasts, you can do social media posts, you can pay for the posts right in the platform. It's all done right there. And now with the assistance of I can tell it to do it.
And that's an internal loop. So you're not that it's not pulling data from the LLM models, the chat GPTs. It's pulling it from Compass's internal
Correct.
brain, in essence.
Yeah.
So all of this information is kind of like the Notebook LLM right now in Google. I don't know. Have you heard about this
Yeah.
one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Where basically it's your information going in there. So anything you're pulling out
On a
of
much bigger scale. So the notebook is really just what you put in there
correct,
personally, right?
correct.
This is our internal,
Exactly.
right? Yeah.
So this is everybody who's ever marketed a townhouse, every conversation or anything that they marketed, any idea, anything that worked, didn't work, drip marketing campaigns. So you're in essence asking the entire 3,000 network
Mhm.
brain of Compass in New York City. It's as if you were in like you said, in an auditorium, and you stood
Mhm.
up and you said, okay, can I please get ideas from everybody? Like, about what worked for you in the past, and the people who've sold townhouses in Brooklyn say, this is what I did, here's the resources, and it automatically creates it
Mhm.
for you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, here's the thing, Gus, right? So what we still have to do it. The agent still has
Right.
to do it. And that's, that's the problem. And where it becomes easier now is before, let's call it even 2 years ago, you'd scratch your head and be like, how am I going to market this property? What
Mm-hmm.
am I going to write in my newsletter? What captions should I put in this social media post? Right? That you can now do with a question, right? And you have the answer immediately. And you can say, give me 8 different scenarios. Now I've got eight. So your creative juices can get flowing in 2 seconds by asking a question.
But
So
this is
part of
what,
this amazes me that there's so many agents, and maybe it's paralysis because they're drinking out of a fire hose right now. There's so many agents out there that just aren't using it and using it
well,
to their advantage.
right. And listen, I was good. I remember when I was at Tregney and Daniel Baum designed this
Mhm.
drip marketing thing. You know what? It was teed up for you. You know, at one
Yeah,
month, this just hit send. Nobody did it.
yeah,
Nobody did it. I mean,
right.
it drove him nuts. But here's the other like kind of danger or interesting thing that I'd love your point of view about. There is a real danger of AI slop, right? So if everything is generated by AI, it has no personality of Dan. It has no point of view of Daniel. It has none of your experience. So what I'm finding with the AI stuff is yes, it can be the first draft, but I really need to go in there and give it my vibe. I mean, I have to talk in my tone in a way that people get that, okay, this is Gus's vibe, this is Dan's vibe, because I still think human beings respond to a vibe, right? They respond to a point of view.
Absolutely, 100%. And you have to keep asking it questions. You got to keep molding it. But I'm going to say before, I would get there with a blank piece of paper and a pen and say, I
Right.
don't even know where to start. And now it starts it for you,
Yeah, and what
right?
also yeah, absolutely. And what also occurs to me is the people who do master utilizing these AI tools to become more productive, buy back 20, 30% of their week in a way that also really magnifies their personality,
Hmm.
their productivity in comparison to other agents. I just see this, massive leveraging happening
Hmm.
for the ones who are willing to uncomfortably take it a baby step at a time, right? Um, and don't you think, Dan, the reality is the agents who did that 20 years ago, you know, are going to have the same temperament to do it now? It's just the leverage they have is so much greater.
Yeah, I think so. And I
Mm,
think the good agents that did it 20 years ago have been smart enough to say, this technology is moving way quicker than I could keep up with. I'm going to hire somebody to do it for me,
yes.
right? And I'm going to hire somebody to put the processes in place, right? All of the, automation behind the scenes,
Hmm.
because that's not my strong suit. And they admit to that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because that's, now you're barking up my alley because that's
Mhm.
exactly what I'm doing. And what I'm also finding, there's a couple of interesting things. I'd like your point of view about this. One is sometimes people view AI as an IT issue, like updating your CRM, and don't recognize it as a strategic issue of it's really about identifying your workflow and processes, which ones are leading to results, which ones aren't.
Mhm.
And I feel like you need a human being in that loop that understands, right? Anybody could go out and hire, plug in the latest AI tool. But I kind of liken it to, I know you're not, I'll be a little politically incorrect here, a very heavy person going to, hasn't worked out in 10 years, going to Bikram yoga and think they're going to do 90 minutes. Like it
No,
ain't, it
no.
ain't going to happen. Like,
You
let's go to the,
still need someone to drive the car, right?
exactly.
You got the cars all souped up, you got the best of the best, but if you've never driven before, right, you need someone to drive the car, right?
And, and I think also everyone has that, and I'll ask you this, has that aha moment where like, holy shit, this is unbelievable. And I remember what my aha moment was with AI. But I think part of it is in working, not with Compass folks who are generally, further down the road, more technically, but like smaller firms. It's like literally teaching them to crawl a little bit and introduce it just a little bit. So they go, oh, wow, this is cool. Like somebody called in at 8 o'clock on Saturday night and they got a response in 4 minutes and they clicked on my Calendly link that I didn't even set up. And now I got a Zoom call set up with them on Monday morning and they've already got the listing and they're in my CRM and the drip marketing has started. Wow. Then you can introduce, hey, there's voice agents, there's predictive analytics, et cetera. What is your thought about that? If you were advising someone in a small firm who didn't know anything about this, what would be your advice?
I would tell them to learn something about this.
Mm-hmm.
I think, with the whole, Calendly link and with like a voice AI person. Like, I think there's studies coming out. All this is new, right? And we think it's
Right,
great, right? Oh, this person can do this for you. But
right.
how effective is it really is the question. No one really knows,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think there's studies coming out now. There's a lot of companies with the chatbots or whatever. Like, you can't even contact the company without speaking to a chatbot
Mm-hmm.
right now. And the satisfaction rate has dropped to the floor. So I'm thinking, like, if agents all of a sudden had automated people calling a lead immediately, how effective would that be? Right? I don't know because you're
Well,
still talking to a robot.
right. And here's what's
And so
interesting. Go
if you
ahead.
look at Zillow, not to cut you off, but Zillow's done very good, right? What do? They have a live caller call that lead within 30 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's worked very well. They make billions of dollars off of it. I wonder if they switch that live agent to a robot, how much it would fall. Unless, listen, the AI gets so good you don't even know you're talking to a robot.
Well, this is what's interesting about it. Like, and I had this experience recently. I hated chatbots, right? I mean,
Hmm.
I want to talk.
Right.
I'm typing. It's sending me to the FAQ. Well,
Right.
I recently was setting up Stripe, to take
Hmm.
payments. And
Yeah.
all right, okay, so I start talking to the chatbot, and guess what? It actually solved my problem. It
Hmm.
actually answered it. So I had a moment of clarity where I realized it's not that I'm adverse to talking to quote unquote a computer. If it can solve my problem quicker and without aggravation, it 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 I was satisfied with the experience because it understood the context. So I think the other interesting thing, and this is where we get to it too, Dan, is I might try a voice agent today or have a negative experience with it, and I throw the baby out with the bathwater. I go, oh, they suck. I'm
Hmm.
never doing that. Well, all of a
Right.
sudden, 6 months from now, they've perfected it. And now all these other agents are using it, and not only using it, they're using it in their tone, in their voice, and it's answering the questions, and they are getting the metrics make sense. But you need someone to kind of go investigate that for you. Like a broker is not going to spend a lot of time listening to sales calls from these different AI firms and then trying to understand, is it real? Isn't it real? Now I got to do the research. So you guys obviously have people who are in that space all the time, testing, looking
Hmm.
ahead, what's coming down the road, when is it safe to adopt it, um, asking questions like, what do we do if the customer starts using racist language against the AI bot? How does it respond? What's the danger of the bot going off the rails and all of a sudden screaming back and using racist language? And then who's responsible for that? And is that a fair housing issue? And what's the law
Yeah.
about AI agents? You know what I mean? So there's
Yeah.
still a lot of confusion in that space. And yet, I don't think people can afford to utilize that not knowing to not begin somewhere.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot, like you gave the example of Stripe, right? Probably very technical. If you don't connect the red
Right,
wire to the blue
right,
wire, then the yellow wire is not going to have power, like, so it's
right,
technical.
right.
But think about the phone call of, hey, where does the bedroom face, right? What does it overlook? Like, I don't care what computer, how are they going to answer that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, and chances are they'll fumble it, right? Or it'll give them the wrong answer, something like that, and you lost the lead.
Yeah, it's just an interesting. I find it fascinating because then the next thing which we haven't even talked about is AI agents, right? So
Hmm.
I'm going to have an AI agent. I'm just going to say, hey, listen, go book this trip for me or whatever, or I'm looking to buy this for Christmas. It's going to go out and investigate it, look at all the websites. And then on the other side, there's going to be an AI agent trying to get it to do a certain thing. So
Right.
there's going to be this separation. And this is what I go back to what I love real estate. At the end of the day, somebody's got to open the door.
Hmm.
Somebody's got to visually witness their emotional reaction to walking through that home for the first time. That unspoken body language dynamic between the family, and then in their little computer going, okay, they really said they wanted to live in the West Village, but what they loved about the West Village was the tree-lined streets, and at their budget, man, maybe Brooklyn Heights is a better option, or maybe this particular section of the Upper West Side is a better option because it answers their emotional need to have
Yeah.
that small tree-lined street, but it fits within their budget. And we're a long way from AI solving that problem.
Yeah. You said it right there, the word emotion, right? It's a huge part of what we do, right? We're advisors, we're therapists, right? Psychologists, because there's emotion involved. And you've got to be able to read it, like you said, and you got to be able to hear certain things and have empathy, et cetera. So I think AI is tremendous to help with the processes and get all things to get you in front of more people and for you to spend more time in front of people instead of doing the minutia behind the scenes. But the good salespeople are still front and center in front of their people, and those are the ones that are making money.
Absolutely. Dan, I think we're going to end it on that note, man, because we came full circle because that piece that you just talked about hasn't
Mhm.
changed since you and I both got into this crazy business 25 years ago.
Yep.
All right, fantastic. Listen, I want to thank everybody for watching Real Estate Rewired with Gus Waite, AI with a Heart. Please subscribe. If you'd like to be on the show, go ahead and make a comment. And Dan, I can't thank you enough, man. This was great. It was great to get caught up, and I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Thanks, guy. Good to see you.
If you've got value from today's episode, hit subscribe, leave a comment. I'd love to know what you're thinking. If you're ready to turn what you love into your superpower and take what you hate off your plate, schedule your free AI discovery call. The link is in the description and pinned comment. I'm Gus Waite. Until next time.